Yaha! I have found a clue. We're looking here at the, it's the IIA chip. It's the MC6822, only it's got some weird XC part number. As it boots up, well, it boots up and it boots to the green screen, right? And then, so there's a periodic pulse here at a 60th of a second, which is supposed to generate an interrupt. Okay? So we're looking here at the yellow trace is the 60 hertz pulse coming in, and that comes into pin 18 of this chip, which is CB1, and then pins 37 and 38, which are the interrupt request pins, and they're actually tied together. We're looking at 38, but we could just as well be looking at 37, which is IRQB, okay, is stuck high. So when that goes low, that should pull this low, and it should only go high again once the interrupt has been serviced. And that is not happening. Okay, further investigation reveals what may be the problem, or just the next step in finding the problem. This is the chip enable line to that IIA chip. This is the write signal, okay? Read write. And you see I've got the cursors set up. It's 2.2 microseconds is the width of the write pulse, which seems reasonable. But we've got a runt pulse for the chip enable. So as it tries to, if it's trying to write to it, it's never going to be able to. That pulse just is not enough. It should be well wider than that. Well, let's see. Yeah, and it's consistent. Well, there was something else. I don't know. Let me go. Yeah, well, you can see multiple pulses, all kind of all the same. It never. Now those could just be glitches, as it's actually selecting something else, and so it could be that it never actually intends. It's not attempting to write to this chip, but some other chip, in which case it would be fine. But to initialize this chip, it definitely has to write to it. Well, that may only happen early at startup, and so... Okay, I've set the trigger mode to normal here, so it will only capture if it gets triggered. And so we'll power on. Oops, power on. And we'll catch... This would catch the first... Well, that's pretty uninteresting. I'll reset it, and this will catch the first instance. Okay, there. Okay, there's the first. There's the startup. Okay, and well, yeah, that's what I was trying to see. It does look like it's attempting to write. So this is the chip enable for the IIA chip. And this is the write enable, okay? So there it's actually doing a write to the chip early on in the startup process. Okay, so it is initializing the chip, or attempting to initialize it, which makes it look like that the chip is bad, right? That this chip, because it's been told to enable those interrupts, and it's not enabling those interrupts, that there's something wrong in that chip. That's kind of what it looks like. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, see, there's another right, and that's all fine. It's not the glitches. The glitches, from what I can tell, which really isn't much, the glitches appear to be related to change in the this is a schematic for the previous version, the A version of the board. What I have is a B version of the board. They had these OR gates here on the enables for the 138. They've eliminated those, and so it's just always enabled. And that means that as these lines change, which go to the lines there, that we could get some glitches, and that seems to be what we've got is little glitches as it's transitioning, and apparently not bad enough to cause any data corruption or anything. Okay, and so by way of testing this chip, I have desoldered it and added a socket in its place. And in so doing, I discovered something. I had been assuming that that was a 6822. And because what I have the schematics for the A version of the board, and that has a 6821 and a 6822. But in actually looking at the chip itself, on the bottom, right there, it says it's a 6821. So I think what's going on, this is a custom 6821, and now the difference between the 6821 and the 6822 is it has two ports, okay, an A, what they call an A and a B port. On the 6822, those are open drain. On the 6821, there are internal pull-ups. So if we look back at the schematic for the A version of the chip, you can see they've got some pull-up resistors here, external to the 6822 chip. Well, apparently, and those are, what, 4.7 Ks. Well, apparently what they did is they got Motorola to make a custom version of the chip that had appropriate resistor values, okay, of about 5.6 K. The standard 6821, I'll set that aside. And so here's a 6821, and which I'm going to plug in to see if this fixes the problem, because even though the pull-up resistors are different values, it should still be fine. Okay, and just by way of verifying, we'll check that same as pin 2. Checking pin 2 to pin 20. Pin 20 is VCC, or plus 5 volts. Pin 2 is one of the A ports. Okay. And 5.1 K. Okay. So they're not that much different, are they? Ground. Another thing I did, you see here, is I added a place to pick up ground so that I don't need to put a clip on one of the chips. Yeah. So we're going to plug that back in. power it on. It clicked, okay, so it's still clicking. And 37 and 38, I think, was the... You know... That... There. Here's ground. That's at plus 5 volts. Okay. So, again, or still, the interrupt requests are not getting through. Come on, there you go. Okay. That's the fast one, 15.7 kilohertz. The other one is on pin 18. 19, 20, 19, 18. This should be the 60 hertz. Yeah. Okay. So, it does at this point look like that is not the problem. So where to from here? Well, I keep thinking I'm going to need to get out the logic analyzer. Now, I've been going through this without that so that, potentially you can follow along at home. I figure most people have an oscilloscope. Most people have a multimeter. So we're trying things at this point that would be easy for anybody to try. Trying not to drag out the specialty equipment, if you want to call the logic analyzer specialty equipment. It's just really that it's a pain to set it up. But I also know that not everybody has one, and the ones that people do get these days tend to be like 16 channels. And we would need more than 16. Well, you could probably get by with 16 channels, just checking the address bins. Okay. Anyway, so this chip appears to be okay. What are the other possibilities? Well, again, it could be the ROM. It could be the processor. Who knows? Somebody mentioned in a comment on the last video that... a common cause for this problem, potential cause for this problem, is if it thinks there's a cartridge installed. So if the cartridge line is messed up. So I gotta go power that back on. And that is over on this chip, this other 6821. It's the fast IRQ line to the processor. Okay. And, well, I could pick it up off of the processor, or I could pick it up off of the chip itself. It's pins 37, 38 of this chip. That's this guy. Okay, whoops. And that is high. So it looks like it's okay, unless, of course, well, let's check the input side of that. Again, that was pins 18 and 39. Well, the cart is pin 18. Pin 39 is something to do with the cassette. That's high. A little over 3 volts. That's a little iffy. Okay. We should get something closer to 5 volts there. And pin 18. 2019, 18. Whoa. Okay. And so, yeah, that is high. With a lot of trash on it. So it doesn't look like that theory is valid here. I'm still a little concerned about what we saw over here. That's right in the middle. Yeah, so I don't know what to make of that. This chip came socketed from the factory, so what I could do is, I have no reason to suspect this chip, but since I have some wherever they are, I have some. I said I have some. I know I have some. I could try swapping that chip. Okay, so that's a 74 LS785. I have some of those. Replacement, mine is an 85 date code, that's an 84. So we'll try that. I'm going to unplug it just to be safe. As I said, I have no reason to expect this will make a difference, but it's an easy thing to try. Okay, and so this goes in upside down, which seems a little crummy to me that they have chips oriented different ways. The ROM and this chip, pin 1 is down here. These other chips, pin 1 is up there. I don't know. I'm sure that simplified the layout. I would have tried to keep them all pointed the same way myself. Alright, so let's see if that does anything. Smoke test. Nothing there. Okay. Back to this. We were looking at it's 37 and 38. And there's no difference. Okay, so I'm going to say it's probably not that chip. Of course, the ones that I have as possible replacements are the ones that are fine. If it turns out to be this chip, I've got a problem because I don't have one of those. And I don't know where to get those. If it's the EEPROM, well, that's not an EEPROM. If it's the ROM, there are ROM images out there, or you know, if I were to find a working unit, I could just copy the ROM out of that onto an EEPROM. All right, I want to try one more thing before I bring in the heavy artillery here, and that's to see if it runs, what it does anyway, with a cartridge installed. So I got a cartridge, and we'll try plugging that in and see what we get. Now, what that does, when there's a cartridge installed, the startup is a little different. It notices the cartridge very early in the startup code, and then it will jump to the code in the cartridge rather than jumping into the basic ROM code. So let's see if that'll run. Well, first we'll see. Let me go ahead and plug this in. Okay, we'll power on. And then what I'm going to do is check that interrupt line. Ooh, and there was something there, it looked like. Thought I saw something. Maybe not. There's some little spikes. Yeah? On that interrupt line. Okay, what about this one? Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know what I'm seeing. Maybe not. Maybe not. Well, let's just see what happens on the view screen here. If that's any. Well, that's different. All right. Well, I don't know what to make of that. Wow. It's wild. It's not going to do anything else. Well, obviously, it doesn't want to run a... it does not want to run a cartridge. Any more than it wants to run basic. So, what does that mean? I don't know that I really got any useful information out of that. Except that, yeah, there's still a problem. Had it worked, we could have said, yeah, the CPU is working properly. With this, who knows?